morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome again. Thank you, and our new guest for coming, for joining us. So welcome and thank you for joining this Leslie Inc. Work Happy Workshop. My name is Anna Gomez. I'm the VP of Sales of Work Happy Retreats. I'm also known as the Camp Counselor here at Leslie Inc. This is our inaugural event, and this is part 2 of the workshop series, Millionaire Mindset. And we're very excited to have this event. I think this one is going to be really popular.
Absolutely.
Leslie Inc., the team, and I, we produce custom Work Happy workshops and retreats for organizations, large ones and small ones, to kind of create. Our goal is a happy business culture. Our future in influencing these industries and customers to create creative, confident, connected, and conscious style of leadership, which we call the 4 C's. Leslie has spent over 10 years, over a decade of coaching business executives from all scales of life, and she's going to share their stories with you. And the Work Happy Retreats promises education, insight, and practical tools that will empower you and your team for years to come. We try to cultivate an industry and an environment of happiness and powerful and empowering tools for everyone. So it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Leslie, Chief Happiness Officer and founder of Leslie. Yes, thank you.
Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, this lecture is the very first one I'm ever going to give. The reason why is because I recently discovered. You ever watch The Secret? And she's like, I discovered it, but it was like 1,000-year-old. You know, she discovered something really old, but it's new to her. It's kind of new to me. The reason why it's so important for the Millionaire Mindset is we're going into 2018, and we want to go into it with a mindset of abundance. And I notice over all these years that we have a relationship with money. And with that relationship with money, it comes with baggage. And we've picked it up along the way, and we're carrying it and weighs us down. And the whole goal of today is to change your relationship with money and to set you free to experience whatever abundance means to you. Because abundance for me might be different for you or you and you. So I want to help you tune into what does abundance mean for you and to help you find and create a solution to get there on the fast track. So forget everything you've ever learned about money, because today I'm going to teach you something completely different, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So, here we have my pen. So when we do here, I want you to write down the very first thing you think about when you think money. Just write it down. What's the first thing I think about when I think about money? Very first thought. Intuitively just write it down. Even if it makes absolutely 0 sense, write it down. Great. I'm going to ask you a little bit about that later. The reason why I ask you, what is your very first thought when you think of money, is because that thought creates a sequence of events. We don't realize that the sequence of events is deeply tied to our habitual notions and attitudes around money and life. So you think your first thought. In the Bible, they call it the original sin. You think your first thought, and what happens? It creates an emotional chain. And that feeling then creates choice after choice after choice. And we find ourselves, after this first thought, going, God, why do I keep making the same decisions? Why do I keep going through the same motions? And even though on the top of my head, I want more money, more financial security, more offerings, more business deals, I keep finding myself in the same things over and over again. What I discovered quite recently, and I wrote a book on it, and I call it the Money Formula, is that if you can change the connection between this first thought, Anna, can you move please? If you can change your first thought to this first feeling and neutralize it, you can then change the entire sequence of events. Yes, that's right, you can be a time traveler too. Really what this is all about is these two things. If you can master what you think and what you feel about anything, you can change the entire outcome of the situation. And the great thing is that this is a lazy way of changing your relationship with money. This is a lazy way of having more money. This is a lazy way of experiencing financial security. The reason why I say it's lazy is because we already intuitively know what to do. The programming is already in there. How to make calls, how to get out there, how to talk. We already know how to do these things. It's just that this thought and the feeling influences those behaviors. So when we change this and make it easy, it's just so natural. And it really does work. It was fabulous. So let me tell you a little bit about my personal story with money. So when I was growing up, or before I was growing up, let me tell you there, my mother was one of 7 children in the Philippines post-World War II. And they had nothing. And my grandfather, he had a stroke and he couldn't work. So it was just my grandmother who'd make ends meet and her daughters. She had more daughters than sons. And in post-war Philippines, near an Air Force base, what's the way out? Airmen. So my grandmother said to my mom, she's like, you have a choice. Either we starve or you have to prostitute yourself. And so my mom and one of her other sisters, they got into the sex trade at 15, very young. And so her relationship with money was completely changed forever. And when my mom married my dad, he was an airman. And in fact, the story goes in my family that the only way to get out of the Philippines was to marry an American and get out. That's the only way you could survive. Marry somebody rich and get out. My mom did, but the thing was is that my dad had his own relationship with money. Blue collar, work months and months. You get your money, you save it, but you got to be very stingy, very Scottish. That's my dad's side of the family. So he had his own relationship with money. Each of them had their own relationship with money, and they're 2 young people in their early 20s trying to make a life for themselves, and they had their own different beliefs and relationships, trying to make a relationship of their own. Naturally, spelled disaster. But we find ourselves like that, many of us. So my parents were never lazy. My parents worked all the time. My dad worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. But we were working poor. And my mom, she would take part-time jobs. She had 4 kids. She would find every way to make ends meet. She would go to the clothes closet, Salvation Army. I mean, most of my memories of clothes and Christmas presents were from the Salvation Army. That's all I remember. We got a big break in 1995, actually. My family was awarded a Habitat for Humanity home. So it really was a hand up instead of a hand out. So we still had to pay it back, but we had to help build it. My memories of the home was working on the house. I was 10. And so we had this new home, and it was really great, but the financial situation didn't change. Even though the burden of buying a home was alleviated, we still struggled. And it continued, and it continued, and it continued. I learned a lot of beliefs from my parents. My parents are not bad people. They're good people. They were hard workers. They're honest. But for some odd reason, they can't get ahead. There's a problem with that. There's 99% of us on the planet that are honest, that are hardworking, that want to help, and we can't get ahead. There's a problem with that. So I was dealing with my own stuff and realizing in my marriage, as I had mentioned earlier, that I married a guy who makes 6 figures, right? Makes good money, super nice, always had what we wanted. We have 2 homes. Like, we have everything that you could possibly ask for. A car that's paid off, no problem. But for some odd reason, he and I could never feel at peace with money. And I noticed with my executive clients, I would have clients have $3 million bonus checks. They would get $200,000 bonuses, no problem. make $1 million a year, no problem. But they still felt emotionally stressed with money. So money's not the answer. And not having no money is not the answer either, right? So how did that work? And I was so tired of carrying this energy inside of me. Every time I would go pay, I had more than enough money in my bank account, but I would slide that card and I would feel bad instantly. I would think, oh, here we go. I'm spending money and I feel bad. Even though consciously, there's more than enough money. It's always coming in. But there's a difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, which all this programming is in. And so what we want to do is to change that chain of event. And I swear to you guys today, when I discovered this, it changed my life. So the reason why I wanted to do this was because of this struggle. And it was so important for me to learn and to understand. And so I prayed to God and I said, please give me an easy, fast way to help people change their relationship with money. Just show it to me. And so one day, I was shopping. I thought that first thought, oh God, I don't have enough. And I felt awful. And then I was thinking, okay, I've done this work before, let me go into it. So I went into the feeling and I began to go, where did I get this from? And when I learned where I got these feelings from, what was happening, what roles, where did this go, I realized my money formula. And remember, everybody's money formula is completely different. Yours is going to be different, yours is going to be different. Everybody on this planet will be different. That's the reason why you could work your butt off at a microchip factory and you will never have enough money. But for some odd reason, Bill Gates does, right? So it's not a question of effort and hard work. It's a question of how do you feel and what's your relationship. So what we're going to do is completely change that today. So I had this idea and it worked. And I tested it out on my friends and my clients. And every single time in 15 minutes, 7 steps, it worked. So much so that I was so inspired, and one day I wrote an entire book called The Money Formula. I was like, I had to, and now I need it published. This thing actually changes everything. So I did it with my husband, I did it with my best friend Anna, I did it with everybody, and it worked. And I did it with couples too. Because I wanted to see if I could do it with the couples to realize what were the blocks. And it does work. So, I want you guys to think about something for me. We are constantly distracting ourselves from wealth. Even the most hardworking person, focused business person is constantly distracting themselves from wealth. I did it for years. Absolutely. The reason why is instead of thinking about wealth, I was thinking of other things. Getting more clients. Making more money. Making more money. Whatever that meant. Getting good reviews. Etc. Welcome. I want you to think about what are the ways that you're distracting yourself from having and experiencing abundant wealth. Some people think about not having enough. Oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. Well, if you put your mind on that, of course. Why? Because we said earlier that your brain can only think of one thing at one time. So if you're creating one wavelength and you're going like, yeah, I got money, well, that's great. But then you're going like, oh my God, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money. What are you saying to yourself?